As for genetics, anything is possible there. They can even insert a dragonfly or butterfly gene into you, and you'll be half carrying that gene. Oh, that's a completely different life. So what I want to get back to is this, that our DNA in principle should possess, in other words, a person should. Through their DNA, you can see what they possess. Regeneration, which is originally inherent in humans. A person should live to be 100 years old and in principle not become a feeble old man, but remain a perfectly normal person. I mean age, so that it's not frightening to look at an elderly person who is frail or drunk or weak and sick or toothless. All of that incredible information contained within one comprehensive package. So let's delve into the fascinating world of DNA, which fundamentally stores vital information. This information is meticulously encoded in the form of a complex chemical sequence, and also in the form of intricate electromagnetic and acoustic waves, as well as detailed spectral images. Our science is not really science. We weren't allowed to develop, and our science is basically non-existent. That is, everything we know, all the sciences around us, are mostly pseudosciences. They don't help us, they don't save us. These are some strange sciences that, in principle, we don't need at all. I don't know why time is being wasted. People's time on some research on defending dissertations, which in essence will end up being a pointless activity. I want to talk about some aspects that Pyotr Goryaev touched upon. As a result, he simply suffered and was sent to the other world, because he spoke about the possibility of human regeneration. I don't know what thoughts, or let's say numbers, he put these ideas into. His knowledge about regeneration, not degeneration, of course. So, regeneration is inherent in humans. But if a lizard has this ability, its tail grows back, right? It does grow back. In humans, teeth can regrow. At some stage, this ability deteriorates. If the DNA is damaged, by the way, there is such a thing as broken DNA. Do you know when DNA is broken? When they have a connection. That is, when a person is born a mutant. He had a connection with an animal. In other words, his gene is that of an animal, a semi-human. That's his gene, right? So he was born through a mutation via... It could be dogs, it could be pigs, it could be bulls, horses, anyone at all. They say it's impossible, friends, but when it comes to genetics, anything is possible. They can even implant a dragonfly or a butterfly into your gene, and you will be half carrying that gene. Oh, that's a completely different life. So what I want to get back to is this, that our DNA, it basically should possess, meaning a person should, through one's DNA, you can see that it possesses regeneration, which was originally embedded in humans. A person should live to be 100 years old and, in principle, not become a feeble old man, but rather remain a perfectly normal person. I mean in terms of age, right? Age, so that it wouldn't be frightening to look at an old person who is frail or drunk or weak and sick or toothless. All of this, all in one package. So let's talk about DNA, which stores information. Information in the form of a chemical sequence, in the form of electromagnetic and acoustic waves, spectral images, vocal genetics. There is also that as well. This is the human voice, speech. Emotions can encode and transmit genetic information, influencing DNA and causing physiological effects. This is what you call witchcraft. Do you understand what I mean? That's how it is. So this has nothing to do with witchcraft. These are simply the laws of physics, the laws of metaphysics that we don't know about, but we think we know everything. So this is what real witchcraft is. It's genetics, wave genetics, our DNA. The influence comes through the voice, through the word. Thought also has a strong influence. Phantom DNA. After the organism dies, The cell or DNA retains a phantom, a wave imprint that can influence other bodies. This phantom, for example, let me give you an example, roughly speaking, of what we might say it could be. A phantom, well, my great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, Fatima Sultan Seytovna, who is buried on Mount Korodak, and her grave is called Holy. For probably 100 years, people have been coming to her for healing. There was a special stone there, a white stone with engravings, some kind of engravings. That is, there were symbols carved into it. The whole stone was white. No one knows what kind of stone it is. It was never identified. A big stone. About 2 meters, but the exact number of centimeters is unknown. About 30 centimeters by 40 centimeters. I mean the thickness of the stone, right? And also a silver grate. So in order to be healed, a person would lie on a hide and on this stone, because the stone is cold at night. And the person had to lie there for 3 days. And this is exactly where wave genetics would come into play, a kind of phantom imprint. A phantom imprint of my great-great-grandmother, who heals the people who come to her. That's why, in 1974, in fact, the year 1974 itself, a very important year for ancient artifacts, because that year an order was given. The decree was actually issued in 1972, but in 1974 it reached those it was meant to reach. A decree stating that things like, for example, the grave of my great-great-grandmother Fatima. Fatima is known all over the world. She is known in Spain, she is known in Italy, she is known throughout all of Europe. But people always come up with some extra names for her, or, on the contrary, they remove Fatima Sultan Seytovna. There is only one Fatima Sultan Seytovna, but just Fatima. Well, you know, there are plenty of Fatimas. You see, there is this twisting of information going on about her as an important person. Information is being hidden. But those who know, when I was in Crimea, I saw Tatar women, and more Tatar women arrived right at the foot of Mount Karadag and started walking up there on foot. It's quite far. There were elderly people with them, and 2 or 3 women of that age, about 35 to 45 years old, they went there to heal themselves. But do they know the exact burial place? I don't know, because the exact burial place was hidden. Why? Because they didn't want people to go there. In 1974, a helicopter arrived. They took the slab away by helicopter and transported it somewhere in an unknown direction. And they also removed the silver grate, took it, and also transported it in an unknown direction. Then they made one. A small grave, and wrote Saint Aziz on it, a small grave, and they placed a stone there. And actually this Saint Aziz is probably the one people now visit with their requests. That's to mix up the cards, as they say, right? In other words, to confuse all the concepts that, in general, could have helped someone. Because, well, there is no grave, and especially there is no grave there where Saint Aziz is supposed to be. There are just some stones piled up and a small grate standing there. So it's fake. Can a fake help you? Of course it can't help you. This is not magic at all. It's all about genetics, specifically wave genetics. These are intricate waves that were extensively studied by the renowned scientist Pyotr Goryaev, and which he talked about. But his research turned out to be, basically it was inconvenient for the ruling class, so they decided to get rid of him. Smart people who offer the possibility of progress are not needed. And here it could have been a major breakthrough, an eye for humanity. But to prevent him from doing that, they got rid of him. That's how I see it. What do you think, friends? You probably know a lot of books. By the way, he wrote some book about science fiction. That is Fantasy by Pyotr Goryaev. I think there is only one book. If anyone knows, please let me know. I forgot what he was talking about. I am Tanya Karatsuba Sidbrukhan.